YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back. After that Week 5 Thursday night football, it was a great game between the Rams and the Seahawks. I'm here to recap it. We do this every single Friday. We also recap all the Sunday games on Monday, and we have power rankings, predictions, score predictions, and plenty more here at the Goat House. Right before we get into the recap, we have even more content available on our Patreon. You see my score predictions here on YouTube. You can get Junior's score prediction. He's the defending champ. Those are on Patreon. If you're part of that tier, that package, you also, with that, get my updated playoff predictions every week and updated mock drafts, which come out almost every week. Both of those are on the Patreon for this week. More info, go to patreon.com/thegoathouse. Link towards the top of the description of every video. And then 40K is our subscriber goal. Please help us out by subscribing. We much appreciate that. Again, we got you covered with all the NFL content all year long, not just in season. But to this game, I mean, let's just skim through the beginning of this game. It's all about the end of this game, really. But early, yeah, you had that Brown fumble that they shouldn't have blown the whistle on. I'm 100% a believer that they did it on purpose. They didn't blow the whistle because it was the Rams. I think they're getting them back. I believe the refs actually do that. I've been saying that for years. They have makeup calls. I think that's what happened here because we've seen that call, the Rams-Saints, call fumbles. They blow the whistle dead. It was pretty shady. It was sketchy. And then ever since then, there's been a whole bunch of fumbles that were obviously the guy was down. You know, so many of them. The one that sticks out the most was Carson Wentz. I think it was last Thursday, but that's just one of many where he's clearly down and they don't blow the whistle. But that's what they did it right. They don't blow the whistle because they don't want to screw themselves. And that's been the talk. You know, everybody's like, all right, the refs been doing a good job fixing that. And there was a blatant one in this game. And the Rams they could have returned that closer. They could have returned that for a touchdown. So they messed up on that. We also saw Todd Gurley fumble, which was crucial at one point. And I think he would have been down, too. I think he would have been down, but Clowney, I think it was just a lot of luck and unfortunate events there for the Rams. And Clowney was right underneath him, so he could not go down. At the same time, they were trying to strip him. So that was two key turnovers early in the game. But the only other thing I want to touch on in the first half was, I mean, besides Russell Wilson throwing some insane balls, we'll talk about that too. We'll talk about that right now. You know, that throw to Lockett in the corner, that was ridiculous. You know, it was insane. That throw, that catch, that toe tap. And at first, I'm like mainly saying, wow, what a catch, what a toe tap. You got both feet down like it was no problem, you know, as he's falling. How does he catch that? But, you know, once you see it again, that throw by Russell Wilson, just absolutely insane. You know, I really at this point, you know, a play like that 99% of the time goes for nothing. It's just a dead play. I think there's only, right now in the NFL, I think there's only two quarterbacks that can make that throw. I think it's Russell Wilson and Patrick Mahomes. You know, I think Brady and Rodgers, and they were able to do that very easily. But I don't know if they can do it anymore. So it's great to see that. Not too many quarterbacks. We got some quarterbacks surprisingly playing good. You got some quarterbacks still playing good, but a lot of bad quarterback play. So it's good to see that. And Russ was on target, hitting ridiculous throws and moving around the pocket. You know, even slipping sacks, slipping tackles all night. It was great to see prime time elite Russ. It was great. But the only other thing I want to touch on in the first half, crucial moment, was towards the end of the first half. Actually, the Seahawks had 4th and 1, and I thought they were going to go for it. They call a timeout to discuss it. They bring their offense back out, and they try to get him to jump, and they kick a long field goal that was not a guarantee, and then he did miss it, and it gave the Rams the ball right there. The Rams go down and score. I think the Seahawks really, that was the game-changing moment. That was the biggest. Even though there was crazy things that happened at the end that could have made it go both ways, I think that was the moment that made if that went a different way, I think the ending of the game would have been, you know, I think the Seahawks could have put him away, really. If you would have went for it there and got it, then I think the Seahawks really could, you know, I don't want to say the game was 100% over, obviously, but it would have changed the game big time. You know, the Rams wouldn't have got that last second score. The Seahawks would have got at least a field goal because they would have been closer. And if they didn't get it, well, they're in the same spot. So I didn't agree with that call for the Seahawks. I thought that was crucial. You know, the whole game, I'm saying they're probably going to lose the game because of this. But then look, and I kept coming back to that too. Like saying it feels like the Seahawks are, you know, kind of, I don't want to say dominated, but I thought they outplayed the Rams, even though the Rams were playing good at times, you know, easily moving the ball. You know, with not a whole bunch of time, like, you know, hurry up looked great. Credit to McVay and his play calling for that, his play designs. But Yeah, I kept going back to that play in the first half. Like, the Seahawks could have put them away. I felt like they had this game. They kind of blew it. But then you go to the second half, more great play of Russell Wilson, like it says here on the screen. I like Chris Carson in the receiver unit, including the tight ends, Will Dissly. Even we saw Luke Wilson. That's great to see for the Seahawks. I thought the group of guys were great. See how DK Metcalf get a touchdown and uses elite speed. It's crazy that the guy has it and his size. Quentin Jefferson, I thought, was dominant. He's having a heck of a year. He really stood out against the Bengals in week 1. The stat sheet won't show it, but he was dominant. The guy plays nose. He plays 3 technique. He plays 4-eye. He's all over. He can play anywhere on the D-line. I really think that. And, when he plays nose, too, he's a really strong guy, athletic guy, but you don't really expect him to be good at nose, and you see him coming from there and getting double-teamed and still getting the QB hurries and hits that he got, which are key, and they don't really show up on your normal box score, so that's why he'll go unnoticed. He's having a dominant year. Like, if I had to vote for the Pro Bowl right now at this way too early stage based off 4 weeks, I would vote for Quentin Jefferson. And my point of bringing that up, though, is because he wouldn't make the Pro Bowl just because his name is Quentin Jefferson. So that's the problem, I guess, with that, the recognition there and people looking at the stat sheet too much. I think he's been absolutely dominant. I thought that, I think maybe week 1 still his best week, but that was probably his second best week. But he's been their best defensive lineman, non-pass rusher probably because Clowney's getting better and better. And then that goes the yellow there means that it was kind of in between play calling and decision making for the Seahawks, which will recap the end of the game, which kind of goes into that. But I like how you establish the run and then you open up the pass. I like that, and it worked out at times, but I didn't always like it. They insist on it too much. I think a team like the Vikings do the same thing. They do the same thing, and they almost insist on it, and if it doesn't work, they lose. And I think the similar thing can happen to the Seahawks here with that, situation. I also didn't like, it was early, but they had a 3rd and 13. They threw a screen to Dissly, I think it was. I don't like that play calling. And then we'll talk about late, but to kind of talk about the Rams, play calling was great. Play designs are great. The hurry-up offense is great. McVay just keeps this offense alive. Cooper Kupp, again, was dominant. He's super impressive. And then kind of in the middle is Goff and Everett, because you look at the numbers for both those guys, and they're great. And they had their great moments. Everett went beast mode for a second there, and he had some big catches. But then he also had that drop at the end of the game that ended up being an interception, which they could have had the chance there to win the game. And then Goff, he was off target at times, but then he was hitting some good throws. He had a touchdown to Cooper Kupp that had just the perfect timing and the perfect amount of velocity. I see the velocity on the ball is there. I like the velocity on the ball he has, and that was kind of his weakness early on, coming into the league. And, at times, downfield, not so much, but kind of like the out routes and the comebacks, and that's what he's hitting, perfect timing with. And then the defense was weak. Defense looks lost. On top of it being on the weaker side, it looks absolutely lost, and then the late penalties cost them big time. We'll talk about that now, the ending of the game. Well, first, I thought there was 2 roughing the passer calls that were interesting. You had one somewhat early on Ziggy Ansah where he was falling down and he couldn't even look up because he was falling down, and he fell into Goff at the same time he threw the ball. That's just ridiculous that you throw that flag. And then you have one on Clay Matthews that everyone's losing their mind about, and it was significant. But here's the thing. If I made the rule on roughing the passer, I wouldn't have any of those be roughing the passer. It would have to be blatantly late, or if it was just a little late, just directly to the head, maybe I would call it. But then since this new rule, that you can't lean with the head, you can't touch the guy in the head, you can't go for his knees slightly after the throw, you can't hit him blatantly late, which was already the call. With that being the rule, the Clay Matthews one I actually agree with. And the people complaining about that one obviously haven't seen these other ones over the past few weeks. They have not been watching football because some of those other ones, you got pass rushers bumping into quarterbacks and holding them up, and they're getting called. I've seen several of those. Matthews, to me, it wasn't dirty really, or it wasn't super late. It was just leaning with the head, leading with the crown, going for Russell Wilson's head, and a little unnecessary, a little late, but I wouldn't say it's dirty. But with the rule being the rule, I would agree with that call, especially compared to the other ones. But if I made the rule, no, that's a little soft still. But so too many people complain. I'm guessing it's Rams fans, so it's understandable. But then, late in the game, the Seahawks could have put this game away super easily, kind of going back to the play calling. At times, establishing the run and then throwing downfield worked and looked beautiful. Some of these rollout calls were beautiful, but at times, some of these play calls were bad because the Rams throw the interception, not really Goff's fault. hell of a grab by Tedrick Thompson, who was a playmaker, his whole college career, and that's why I kind of liked him coming out of Colorado there. And he makes a big time play. And I mean, once again, the refs kind of blew that. He could have got up and ran for extra yards, but they blew the whistle. I mean, I thought he caught it live too. I know it was a tricky one, but it almost, it looked like it was pretty simple, clear cut. But anyways, the Seahawks could have put the game away. Chris Carson's running it down the throat, easily running it on the Rams. And then, you think they would run it again. And they kind of outcoached themselves there. They got a little too fancy with that option, the Tyler Lockett. They had him come on the end around the play before. And you see him doing it again. They're like, okay. I thought it got obvious. You have him come around again for a second time. You have to be using him. The last time was a decoy. I mean, you can't be more obvious. They kind of just outsmarted themselves there is the best way to explain it. And it was a risky pitch by Russ, but it's really not his fault. But really, that could have been really bad. It could have been a fumble and picked up for 6 ball game. So that I did not like that call. Go put the game. I'd rather you throw it. Because the option, you're going backwards because he's got to pitch it at one point unless he keeps it. And if he did keep it, I don't think he would have got it. You either punch it with Carson, punch it with Penny even. That can throw some teams off. You put Penny in there, okay, they may be throwing the ball, and you punch it with Penny. Or you throw it. Or you can have a design run straight up the middle at Russell Wilson. Anything would have been better than what they did, especially being obvious because the play before was a decoy. So they gave the Rams a chance. To me, it was looking like a choke job by the Seahawks. It was a great punt, but then they were giving up insane cushion and free clock stoppage out of bounds. Just free for the taking. And the Rams are getting down there, obviously, and the penalty, they had a bad false start, terrible false start penalty, and then a terrible delay of game. Like, how do you get both of those? Mainly the delay of game. How do you get those in those situations? And you still expect Zerline to make the kick. He's still a heck of a kicker, even though he missed that. But you could have had extra yards. I know you gained 9 back on that last play. Some more cushion let up by the Seahawks that I didn't get. Really, how that last drive for the Seahawks and the Rams went, the Rams should have won the game. But the game felt like the Seahawks won the game, most of the game. And it's the NFL. All the time I feel like, okay, this team won the game, but they didn't actually win the game. So it was interesting. Very interesting, and the Seahawks it felt like both teams were like trying not to win. The Seahawks were kind of gave them a chance by not putting the game away, and then they were playing had insane cushion, given the free first downs, the free yards, the free out of bounds plays after the catch, and the Rams getting the penalties and missing the kick. It just kind of felt like it was a good game, but there was a lot of stupidity at the same time. It just kind of felt like, no, you win. Here you go. That's what it kind of felt like. And kind of backtracking, I'm all over the place here, kind of backtracking that 4th down touchdown to Chris Carson. The play before, the 3rd down run, some people bashing that a little bit. I understand why you could, but I don't mind that call. It is a big-time gamble, and I was thinking they could do that before they did it, and I don't really mind it. It's a huge gamble. I wish there was a little better play design. I know Carson had to bounce it out. But then it paid off. You're going to go for it on 4th down. Sometimes I wish teams did more of that, but maybe not that scenario. Like maybe if you have a 3rd and 2 at midfield, and you should have a plan, or 3rd and 3, you should have a plan that, okay, if we don't get this, we're going for it on 4th down, but teams will throw the ball, incomplete it, and then they'll have 4th and 3, and they go for it, and it's too hard to get. I hate that. If you know you're going for it on 4th down, you have a decent running game, you run the ball on 3rd down to me. Or it's some kind of genius play-action play. So I don't mind that call. It's just, wish it was a little better, obviously. It's quite the gamble. And the throw to Chris Carson, I thought he was going to drop it. And if you see Russell Wilson, he pointed at the sideline for a great play right before Carson bobbled that ball or hit it up in the air. So Russell Wilson actually missed all that. So that was absolutely wild. And the 2-point conversion was key, too. It was a great throw. Metcalf had it. You could say he should have caught it, but at the same time, it was actually a great pass breakup by Marcus Peters, who had a rough day. But that was actually big time, because if they would hit the field goal, the key of the game would have been Marcus Peters' breakup on DK Metcalf, big time receiver there. That was huge on a perfect throw too. So that could have been a key, even though Marcus Peters had a pretty bad game. That could have been clutch there. But again, at the end, it just felt like both teams were just trying to, not win. They're trying to lose. It was strange, but it was still a very good game. Back-to-back Thursday night games that were very exciting. So I really enjoyed the game for the most part. If the Seahawks would have lost, mainly people and myself would have been blaming the not trying to put the game away and the cushion they let up on the receivers there on the last drive. But I go back to what I said at the end of the first half, them not going for it on 4th and 1 and wasting 2 timeouts. They wasted 2 timeouts to do that and to go a long non-guaranteed field goal. That was questionable to me, and I would have backtracked to that first, and I was kind of thinking it the whole game, they're going to lose because of this. So I like this coaching staff. They look, because I think development mainly is why I always like this coaching staff. They seem like very good at developing players, like guys like Quentin Jefferson's coming out of nowhere, and they're good at knowing their identity, knowing their team, what fits their team. And at times they make insane play calls. They establish the run, and then they know when to, the right time, because there's other teams that establish the run and they don't know the right time to open up the pass and make big plays. They don't know. The Seahawks know when to do that. I just don't like some of their decision making at times. And I think they can go out. I think they have opportunities in pretty much every game this year besides the Saints game to just go put the team away. All their wins, every single one of their wins besides the Cardinals last week, I thought they could have just went and put the team away. Pretty simple, and they kind of just couldn't do it. So that's why I'm on the fence about the play calling back and forth and decision making. I mentioned the Vikings have the similar style offense, a similar play calling. They want to establish the run and they want to throw, but they struggle to throw when they can't run. The difference is the Vikings have Kirk Cousins, the Seahawks have Russell Wilson. So the Seahawks should have no excuses, and there's no fault to Russell Wilson when anything's going bad or when they can't put any teams away. So the Seahawks shouldn't really have any of this problem. It almost looks like they rely, similar to the other teams that do this. It looks like, if we can't run the ball, we're screwed and we can't open up the pass. No, you have Russell Wilson. You can always open up the pass. So that's my take. They need to get better on that. I think they will. I think certain young players or new players will get better for the Seahawks team going forward. But then again, for the Rams, there's not a whole bunch of good for the Rams in this game. I play calling Cooper Kupp, and it was kind of half and half for Goff and Everett. Defense, like I said, was terrible. I thought they looked, out of place. Letting Chris Carson wide open on that 4th down just can't happen. So Wade Phillips, who was a great defensive mind, maybe it's time to make the change now because it's not looking good. His players are lost. That's not good. But there wasn't a lot of good for the Rams, like I said. You expect Todd Gurley to be better. You expect, other players like Robert Woods. I know Cooks got hurt. So I guess it's a negative and a positive, because negative is like what's going on, but the positive is if we play our game, if those guys show up and everyone executes, we're damn good. We're scary. We may go back to the Super Bowl. So I guess that's the positive way. Seahawks just need to put teams away. They got to figure it out. We'll see, though. Interesting battle there in the NFC West, because you also have the San Francisco 49ers. Could be the best division in football. We'll see what the Niners do this week against the Browns on Monday night. Looking forward to that one. But that's going to do it for this one. We're back every single week with the Thursday night recap on Fridays. And on Mondays, we have the Sunday recap, all the Sunday games together. We also do power rankings and all kinds of predictions. Check out the Patreon if you want even more Goat House. If you don't subscribe, please subscribe. We're trying to get to our 40K subscriber goal. But that's going to do it for this one. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Goodbye.